Good morning, everyone. Today is a beautiful spring day out here, and today is not a good day for history, I'm afraid. Today we will be talking about the crash of Germanwings Flight 9525, which occurred 10 years ago today. It was a scheduled international passenger flight from Barcelona Airport in Spain to Düsseldorf Airport in Germany. The flight was operated by Germanwings, a low-cost carrier owned by the German airline Lufthansa. On March 24, 2015, the aircraft crashed 100 kilometers northwest of Nice in the French Alps, killing all 150 passengers and crew on board. The plane was a 24-year-old Airbus A320-211. The plane took off from Barcelona El Prat Airport at 10:01 a.m., 26 minutes behind schedule. It was due to arrive at Düsseldorf Airport by 11:39. At 10:31, after crossing the French coast near Toulon, the aircraft left its assigned cruising altitude of 38,000 feet and without approval began to descend rapidly. The air traffic controller declared the aircraft in distress after its descent and loss of radio contact. The descent time from 38,000 feet was about 10 minutes. Radar observed by an average descent rate of around 3,400 feet per minute. Attempts by air traffic control to contact the flight on the assigned radio frequency were not answered. A French military Mirage ship was scrambled from the Orange Serratat Air Base to intercept the aircraft. Radar contact was lost at 10:40 at the time. The aircraft had descended to 6,175 feet and crashed in the remote commune of Prats-Hotel-Bléon, 100 kilometers northwest of Nice. The crash site is within the Massif des Trois Évêchés, 3 kilometers east of the settlement Le Vernet and beyond the road to the Col de Mariade in an area known as the Ravine du Rosé. The aircraft crashed on the southern side of the Tête du Travers, a minor peak in the lower western slopes of the Tête de l'Estroupe at an elevation of 1,550 meters. The aircraft was traveling at 700 kilometers when it struck the mountain. The site is about 10 kilometers west of Mount Sommet, where Air France Flight 178 crashed in 1953. Gendarmerie Nationale and Sécurité Civile sent helicopters to locate the wreckage. The aircraft had disintegrated. The largest piece of wreckage was the size of a car. A helicopter landed near the crash site. Its personnel confirmed that there were no survivors. The search and rescue team reported the debris field covered 2 kilometers square. There were 72 Germans, 51 Spanish, 3 Argentines, 3 Kazakhs, 3 Americans, 2 Australians, 2 Colombians, 2 Iranians, 2 Japanese, 2 from the UK, 2 Venezuelans, 1 Belgian, 1 Danish, 1 from the Ivory Coast, 1 Mexican, 1 Moroccan, and 1 from the Netherlands. Among the passengers were 16 students and 2 teachers from the Josef König Gymnasium of Haltern am See, North Rhine-Westphalia. They were returning home from a student exchange with the Giola Institute in Linares del Valle, Barcelona. Haltern's mayor, Bodo Klimpel, described the crash as the darkest day in the history of the town. Also on board were bass baritone opera singer Oleg Brizhak and another opera singer by the name of Maria Radner. They were singers in the Deutsche Oper am Rhein, also among the passengers were 2 football journalists and analysts returning home after covering El Clásico between FC Barcelona and Real Madrid 2 days before. The flight's pilot in command was 34-year-old Captain Patrick Zondenheimer, who had 10 years experience, 6,000 flight hours, including 3,812 hours on the Airbus A320, flying A320s for Germanwings, Lufthansa, and Condor. The co-pilot was 27-year-old Andreas Lubitz, who joined Germanwings in September 2013 and had only 630 flying hours. 540 of them were on the Airbus A320. The French Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety opened an investigation into the crash. It was joined by its German counterpart, the Federal Bureau of Aircraft Accident Investigation. The BEA investigation was led by Arnaud Desjardins and was assisted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation. Hours after the crash, the BEA sent 7 investigators to the site. These were accompanied by the representatives from Airbus and CFM International. The cockpit voice recorder, which was damaged but still functional, was recovered by rescue workers and examined by the investigation team. The following week, Bryce Robin, the government prosecutor based in Marseille, announced that the flight data recorder, blackened by fire but still usable, was also found. Investigators isolated 150 sets of DNA, which were compared with the DNA of the victims' families. You're not going to like this. According to French and German prosecutors, the crash was deliberately caused by the co-pilot Andreas Lubitz. Robin said Lubitz was courteous to Captain Zondenheimer during the first part of the flight, then became curt when the captain began the mid-flight briefing on the planned landing. Robin said that when the captain left the cockpit, possibly to use the lavatory, Lubitz locked the door and overrode the door code from the inside, preventing anyone from entering. The captain requested re-entry using the intercom. He knocked and then banged on the door, but received no response. The captain then tried to break down the door, but like most cockpit doors made after 9/11, it had been reinforced to prevent intrusion. During the descent, the co-pilot did not respond to questions from Marseille Air Traffic Control, nor did he transmit a distress call. Robin said contact from the air traffic control tower, the captain's attempts to break in, and Lubitz's steady breathing were audible on the cockpit voice recorder. The screams of passengers in the last moments before impact were also heard on the recording. After their initial analysis of the aircraft's flight data recorder, the BEA concluded that Lubitz had made flight control inputs that led to the crash. He had set the autopilot to descend to 100 feet and accelerated the speed of the descending aircraft several times thereafter. The BEA preliminary report into the crash was published 6 weeks later on May 6, 2015. It confirmed the initial analysis of the aircraft's flight data recorder and revealed that during the earlier outbound flight 9524 from Dusseldorf to Barcelona, Lubitz had practiced setting the autopilot altitude dial to 100 feet several times while the captain was out of the cockpit. The BEA final report into the crash was published on March 13, 2016. The report confirmed the findings made in the preliminary report and concluded that Lubitz had deliberately crashed the aircraft as a murder-suicide. The report stated, the collision with the ground was due to the deliberate and planned action of the co-pilot who decided to commit suicide while alone in the cockpit. The process for medical certification of pilots, in particular self-reporting in case of a decrease in medical fitness between 2 periodic medical evaluations, did not succeed in preventing the co-pilot, who was experiencing mental disorder and psychotic symptoms, from exercising the privilege of his license. 3 days after the crash, German detectives searched Lubitz's Montabaur properties and removed a computer and other items for testing. They did not find a suicide note nor any evidence that his actions had been motivated by a political or religious background. During their search of Lubitz's apartment, detectives found a letter written by doctors, a doctor indicating Lubitz had been declared unfit to work. Germanwings stated it had not received a sick note from Lubitz for the day of the flight. New accounts said Lubitz was hiding an illness from his employers. Under German law, employers do not have access to employees' medical records, and sick notes excusing people from work do not give information about medical conditions. So employers must rely on employees to declare their lack of work fitness. The following day, authorities again searched Lubitz's home, where they found evidence he suffered from a psychosomatic illness. Toxicological examination of Lubitz post-mortem revealed the presence of all three: antidepressants, escitalopram, and mirtazapine. Escitalopram, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, is associated with the risk of suicidal thoughts and behaviors, especially soon after treatment is commenced. Lubitz was prescribed ectolopram 9 days before the crash. Criminal investigators said Lubitz was then, in the week before, researched online ways to commit suicide and cockpit doors and their security provisions. Robin said doctors had told him Lubitz should not have been flying, but medical secrecy requirements prevented his physician from making this information available to Germanwings. The investigation into Lubitz revealed his treatment for suicidal tendencies before his training was a commercial pilot, when he had been temporarily denied a U.S. pilot's license because of treatments for psychotic depression. For years, Lubitz had frequently been unable to sleep because of what he believed were vision problems. He consulted over 40 doctors, fearing he was going blind. Motivated by the fear that blindness would cause him to lose his pilot's license, he began conducting online research about methods of committing suicide before deciding to crash Flight 9525. There's also a lesson they learned from that crash. 2 cockpit crew members are to be in the cockpit at all times. And also, there was another related crash that happened 2 years earlier. There was the crash of LAM Mozambique Airlines Flight 470, which occurred on November 29, 2013. The flight's captain, Herminio dos Santos Fernandez, locked the first officer out of the cockpit and set the pilot's autopilot to crash into the ground. The crash killed everyone on board, leaving no survivors. And after the Germanwings crash, they decided to pay more attention on the Mozambique airline crash. Committing suicide is one thing, but taking innocent lives with you, that's another thing. When you have suicidal thoughts, you should see a doctor or any psychiatrist at all times. Do not hesitate to go see a doctor. Well, that's all the history I have for you on that fateful flight. To those of you who are German, French, Spanish, and everyone from around the world, never forget this catastrophe that happened 10 years earlier. Well, there's a documentary about the crash from Air Crash Investigation. It's available on YouTube. If you're interested about it more, there's a link on the description that allows you to look at the victims of the flight. Okay, that's all I have for you today, and this is Stephen Luke, and hope you have a nice day.